And here we go. Here we go. All right. So, morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, today we're going to be discussing a subject that's, I think it's going to be fun. Um, Hopefully, it's informative, but it's based around the idea of how do you engage people in the process through conversations, um, and basically how do you engage people, period. Because we hear and you guys can chime in on this about I can't find nobody or I can't meet with anybody or um, you know it's almost like they're waiting for them to drop out of the sky or something. Um, but what have you guys experienced in that?
Well, I like to tackle people first thing. That's the easiest way I've found. Now, I remember early on in this process, I kept hearing people say, and you were telling me this, Bill, don't chase people, don't chase people. And I thought that meant like, okay, let's just sit around and wait for them to like come engage me. And that's not what it means at all. It just means you don't have to like pursue people that don't want to be pursued. But
Badger them.
there is a pursuit, and it's a general pursuit. It's a very what's the word I'm looking for? Very precise, very thoughtful, very intentional pursuit
Mm-hmm.
of people. But you've got to kind of back and forth. You put a little bit out, kind of like a bait and fishing. You put a little bit of bait out there, and they may nibble, but then go away. So you don't go looking for them. You just kind of wait, and then it's this kind of like dance, really,
Right.
of curiosity versus truth relaying, and to the point of someone leaning in,
Yeah.
and I don't know how else to say it. It's almost like, you have a conversation with somebody and you can tell sometimes when you're talking to somebody, they could care less what you're saying. They're
Yeah.
just kind of like, yeah, hurry up and shut up so I can talk. And those people, I'm not saying they never will, but early on, I just don't really engage with those kind of people. But with somebody, when I'm having a conversation, and I'll say whatever truth God's showing me at the time, or whatever thing I'm studying. I'll just kind of get a little bit of piece of
Yeah.
bread and just kind of toss it at them and see what they do. And when they kind of lean in, and I go, okay, they're a little hungry, and then I'll do it again, and then you can kind of see if there's an appetite there, really.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it doesn't happen the first time; it happens over time. So for me, the hardest thing when trying to find somebody to engage with is finding someone you have proximity to often enough to where you can do that. And I think that's probably most people's problem, is because most of the people that they're surrounded with are already believers, and already most of the time already believers that are pretty content where they are, and they're
Mm-hmm.
you know sitting in the pew. So for me, I've always used questions. I've always used kind of like what you call like spiritual hand grenades. You kind of walk up and just kind of sit it on the table and just wait for the explosion,
Yeah.
and what their reaction is. And that's me. Like, but for most of us, we don't have like, if you work a job, where you engage with a lot of people, that's a good place to practice that.
Mm-hmm.
And just dropping out little spiritual truths when you're having conversations with people and just see how they respond. And I found most people are a bit curious. They'll kind of cock their head and look at you, and what do you mean by that? Or and
Mm-hmm.
the conversation will begin, and then over time it'll just kind of keep rolling and rolling until eventually they're like, "And you ever got time for coffee, or you want to sit down and just have a conversation one time?" And that's all I do,
Yeah.
honestly. I don't know. I guess I've done it long enough now. I've kind of got pretty good at it. Early on, I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to tackle people. Really, I just wanted to
Right.
let me tell you all I know, and let me overwhelm you and show you how smart I am. And I think a lot of people kind of do that in the beginning. So
How about you,
that's
Derek?
Mm, Yeah. Uh,
there's got an advantage and a disadvantage.
yeah. I'm kind of in a catch 22,
Yeah.
Right.
a very good catch 22, uh, where I'm like probably 60%, 70% of my life is extroverted, and then there's like this 30 to 40% that I am super, super introverted. Well, I just want to get the heck away from everybody. But that 70, 60, 70% of my ability to communicate is very, very efficient. And so I don't, I, for many years, I didn't really even have to deal with this kind of question because I didn't have
Right.
an issue engaging
Right.
people, and being a pastor brings I'm doing a lot of sifting. I sift a lot more than what I used to. I would call my uniqueness to this simply because I have people that come to me that they really don't want to sit down with me. They just want to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like they don't want anything that I have. They maybe want counseling, or they want to feel better about about themselves, something like that. And so I have to be careful with my time because I have to make sure that when there is somebody that finally comes and shows up that's ready to engage in this kind of activity, which the activity is intense disciple making,
Yeah.
taking denying yourself, taking up your cross, and
Mm-hmm.
following Christ. I mean, it's a big deal. But as far as the practical things for me early on, I was not. I was so self focused in this thing that I wasn't even thinking about how many people I was leaving behind because I wasn't training them how to engage others.
Mm-hmm.
I was just the man that was getting everybody connected because I'm a connector, I'm a
Right.
networker, and I
Right.
don't mind being a networker. And so for me, this kind of stuff is not hard. What's hard is transferring and training others to do it, which had to have been a huge deal to Jesus
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm.
his disciples, because I doubt all those 12 disciples were at the same place when it comes to their ability or inability to engage individuals in this process. And again, like Jason, and this might be a topic that I think this came up with you and I, Bill, like a month ago, 2 months ago. This whole, remember, I can't even remember the question I asked. It might have been right before we went on our trip, but the thing is that grenade,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So the only, I don't know, I feel like the only really helpful thing I can give anybody in this video is you got to be willing to say things that spark curiosity at the same time they don't repel the person so much that they think you're a freaking nut because of the information you're spewing out. Like, you
Yeah.
don't want to be a fire hydrant. You want to tone it down a little. I've learned to do that. You want
Yeah.
to tone it down a little. And really, I think maybe I'm answering this for myself. Jason alluded to this. We got to be better at crafting better questions.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
We've got to learn how to craft questions instead of just, "Hey man, you ever seen this?" Blah. You
Yeah.
ever and maybe questions are a good way to engage. It's like the rabbis.
Yeah.
You know, they were great at engaging their followers.
Right. So as I'm listening to you guys, I'm trying to put myself in the position of the person, uh, or remembering back whenever I first began this process. I was kind of a hybrid of you and the common person. I was in a position of influence, um, and where people knew me, but yet I was still in, not christened. uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of, I was respected by the common person, but not so much the leadership, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So I did that carried some opportunity, but I think about the people and I think about myself. Um, I think one of the things you have to get really comfortable with is mistakes. Uh,
Mm.
that would be a good thing to tell somebody that's trying to engage people. just like you said, it's you know I've heard both of you say I've gotten better. I've gotten more skilled. Well, how do you get more skilled and get better? You know, you gotta go up
Correlated.
to somebody and they gotta look at you like a freak with two heads, uh, or you've got to jump in. You know, you talk about fishing. Um, it reminded me of that joke about the guy that fished with dynamite. Do you remember that joke?
Don't think so.
You don't remember that joke? The guy was
I just want you to tell it.
okay. Guy's fishing with dynamite. You know, he's out there. He's throwing it in there, blows it up, and all the fish float to the top. And the game warden came along and said, "You can't do that." And he says, "Well, why can't I do that?" He goes, "That's not legal." And he lit a piece of dynamite in the hand of the guy and said, "You gonna talk? You gonna fish?" Yeah. So a lot of people. That's why people fish. You know, for potential people is
Yeah.
they use a stick of dynamite, which
Right.
all it does is completely disables the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. So you can't go in blowing people up. And like you said, and sometimes when you're genuinely trying, when something's genuinely killing you, as far as information, um, you can be excited and be, you know, encouraged, and people can pick up on that. But
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
you can't like pounce on people.
Yeah.
But you got to pounce on a couple people to realize you can't pounce on people.
Yeah.
That's
More
right.
than a couple, probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I realized is, you're talking about passion. Like, you can't do this without it. Like, you
sure.
can't not have excitement, because if you're talking to somebody, like, you ain't gonna believe what I read in the Bible this morning. You're like, you gotta.
Yeah,
There's got to be something that they're gonna go. Why is
and
he
it
so
can't be
excited?
false passion. It can't be worked up.
Right, you can't make it up. So there's this bubbling that happens as you get into this process. But I've realized, like, um, curiosity and people wanting what you have, honestly, is the biggest draw in the beginning.
Yeah,
Now it changes pretty quickly. So, like, most people want to sit down with me because they want to know what I know.
yeah,
Right? They want the information I got. They're like, "Where are
right.
you getting this stuff? I've
Yeah,
never heard any of this thing. How do you know all this stuff?" And so we'll sit down and with the intention of, they want to be, better Bible study people.
sure.
And, immediately I'm like, I'm thankful that you're here, but it's not about that. And we switch the gears really, really quickly to say, look, this isn't for you. This is for the person coming after you. So the reason I'm working with you is because you got to be willing to give away what
Right.
I give away. And but curiosity and that what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there's got to be something that you're carrying that entices people. Like, you're the bait,
Mm-hmm.
not so much what
Yeah.
you say.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
Now, initially, you can't just be an excitable person, and then people, because if you don't have any substance, it's not going to go anywhere. But in the beginning, your passion and your excitement for things is a mystery to people, because
right.
they're like, I've been a Christian for 5 years or 10 years or 100 years, whatever it is, and they're like, I don't have that passion. And then you find out you've been in the Lord for 25 years, and they're like, well, how do you still have that passion? How,
Yeah,
Here's
what drives you? So
here's something to consider too. I don't want to get all scriptural.
heaven forbid.
oh no.
Yeah, heaven forbid. I can't believe I just said that. I just had a thought of a man that we all know that might would have said that years ago, or today. But anyway, I think you roomed with him one time, Jason.
Yeah, I did.
um, so you say, so think about it like this. I hadn't really thought about it like this, but it's the Christ that people see in you. So
Yeah.
there's that fruit of the spirit that is developed in us slowly, and at times that fruit of the spirit that's developed in us slowly takes time for others to see it. But a
Mm.
lot of the times, the only time other people will see it is when you're doing life with them together
Yeah.
in a challenging situation. So this is a pastoral thing, but you don't have to be at my church to see this. You don't have to be under me to see this. You just have to be with me. But when the
Yeah.
shit hits the fan,
Hmm.
Yeah.
you want Derek Jones around you
Yeah.
or involved in the situation.
Yeah.
Not because I'm perfect, but because I've been in life and death situations innumerable times, been in situations nobody my age has been in before, and it's just this life event. So peace, that's
Yeah.
not my peace. It's the peace of Christ that's in me. Joy, yeah, I'm not always joyful, but my point again is there's got to be something manifested by us that's otherworldly, that's not necessarily of this earth, and that's one of the things. And then the other thing is, like, I think what we're saying is you've got to be around people, number one.
Hmm.
And I know several people specifically, I know them, I could call several by name, that are just not around other people in a environment to engage. And not that they can't do it, they just won't. They're
Yeah.
not, they don't put themselves in those positions to be um to be that for someone else, to show that, to where there might be a leaning in.
Yeah.
And like and the example is for me, and I'm going to shut up about the institutional thing, but I'm just talking about me right now.
Hmm.
That when I do funerals, it's like people just, I don't know what it is, but people are drawn to Jesus, the Jesus in me, when I do funerals, when I get around that end of life thing, because I've done it so much. I failed at it a lot, but I've done it so much. I know how to carry myself, and I know how to let God carry me through that. But again, the situation is, you we've got to develop this. This is not something that
Right.
you can be a Christian and go to church your whole life and not develop this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
got to be developed, and the only way it can be developed is you have to have a passion and a zeal for others and for the world, and that's where I think it starts.
Right. It does start with, like we're talking about passion, what's going on inside of you, um, and there had like I said, you have to be comfortable with mistakes, but you have to be content wherever you are, because the the biggest, I think, frustration is people, like, they don't like where they are,
Yeah.
and but it's where God has you at the moment, and whether that is for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent, Jason, you know this, Derek, you know this. I've spent a couple years by myself, and
Yeah.
not necessarily by myself, but not really investing anybody directly.
Kind of
And
isolated. Yeah.
yeah, and but you, how do you learn to do that?
Yeah.
You go
Yeah.
through it. I mean, and
Yeah.
you get that, angst, and I don't get it, and I don't understand it, don't like it, um, kind of attitude. But you have to learn. You have to be happy where you are, or not happy, but
Yeah.
content and at peace about it, because
Okay with it.
God's going to bring who He's going to bring, and He's going to give who He's going to give. And what if getting them too early is going to be detrimental to you or them, or getting them too late, or
Yeah.
yeah, you want it at the right time. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I would encourage people to do. But the biggest thing is while you're waiting, this is huge. While you're waiting, prepare.
Yeah.
I've watched people wait, 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 and wait, and I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing? Well, they're not doing it. Well, do you have this? Do you have this lesson ready? How many lessons do you have, currently? How many things can you stand and teach? How many things have you studied? And they're like, oh, I got one or two, and I'm like, well, you're not even ready. Why would
You got
God?
nobody because you got nothing to give them.
Well, yeah, I mean, if God was to bring you somebody, you'd have a 15-minute conversation with them, and then you tell them
You'd be
everything
done.
you know. So
Yeah, so when Derek
preparation's
was
big.
talking, yeah, I think you guys have talked about two different sides of the same coin. So one side of the coin is our part, right? And Derek's talking about, I kept hearing the words capacity
Mm-hmm.
and capability.
Mm-hmm.
So capacity is God's work in you to develop you to where you can hold more, and capacity, excuse me, and capability is our learning the
Right.
experiences and the things that we go through to develop us in character and in skills. The other side of it is learning to wait on the Lord, learning to not, you know, like you said, you might get a person, if you get them too fast, it's going to be detrimental to them or you. So like there's that process of like waiting on God's timing to bring someone in. And that's hard. That's the patience part of
Yeah.
it. And while you're waiting, you work on your capability, you work on your capacity, and that means learning, and that means putting yourself in situations where you can develop skills. Like for me, early on, I didn't have any opportunities to speak, and so Bill, you made opportunities for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
we didn't start a church just for that, but that was a chance for me to stand up and say things,
Yeah.
on a regular level, and most people don't have that. So you've got to help people that you're working with, give them those opportunities.
Right.
And it may just be a small group of people, or it may be like a small weekend setting, but you've got to have opportunities to let them stand and develop their skills.
Right.
And now, if they're not willing to do the work beforehand, you
Right.
don't need to do that. But you understand what I mean?
Because
So
you
it's
need
like
to
two
hear
sides of the same thing.
because you need to hear yourself say some things.
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
until you actually say it, sometimes it doesn't land.
Yeah,
And that's why having somebody to talk to or somebody to pour out into or toward helps, because you get to
yeah,
hear yourself say, because I don't know how many times I've done that where I told somebody something and then all of a sudden I heard what I said and it hit different.
yeah.
It may have been
All
just
the
a
time,
conversation.
Time
all
Yeah.
the time.
all
Yeah,
the time.
Yeah. um,
yeah.
so uh, I don't know how this is hitting the person that is frustrated or has a desire to pour into somebody. I'm trying to get my mind in that where where I recognize it in people and the frustration, but it really does come down to uh, preparing, being ready, having the, like you said, capacity. I think of Herb used to say, he said it, I don't know if he stole it from somebody, probably did, but it was um, which would you rather be, a
Mm.
million-gallon Christian half full or believer half full, or a pint size believer that's always overflowing? And I got it wrong. I immediately thought, shoot, I'd like to be a million half full. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. But what his point was, it's about the overflow. So
Mm.
don't get hung up on, I don't know as much as this person, or I can't say it as well, or it's not necessarily about that. It's about the overflow. It's
Yeah,
about how
yeah,
much you're feeling. So be careful about praying for capacity, because if you pray for capacity and you get it, that means that just puts the onus on you more.
yeah, yeah. The outflow is more important than the depth in the
Yes.
beginning. And
Yes.
so we were like, that's what I'm saying. Like you got to have places where you can say these things, because that's how you develop that ability to get outside yourself and put it out into somebody else.
Right.
And in doing that, your capacity starts to grow because you're learning more. Like you're
Right.
getting skills, you're learning more truth. I mean, I remember when me and you first started meeting, I didn't know nothing.
Hmm.
Like I was pretty new in Christ, and we would meet. Like I said, we've said this before. I would meet with you on Thursday mornings, and I would teach a guy on Saturday exactly what you taught me on Thursday, because I didn't have any capacity. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So I would be like here, and it was God's providence, because it
Yeah.
forced me to give away what I was getting, and I
Right.
learned the process of that early on. And I never really sat on truth very much. I would
Right.
when I learned something new, I was blah, 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 to everybody, and scared the crap out of a lot of people and pushed them away. But I was learning.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that happens sometimes. Like, and I've had people say, well, well, this person all of a sudden had three or four people, and I can't get anybody. And I'm like,
right,
okay, well, maybe God maybe God saw that had to happen that way. Don't worry about what other people are doing
Right.
necessarily.
Right.
I mean, is this a competition? Absolutely. I mean,
Oh, I'm
it's
kicking
it,
y'all's butt. That's for
yeah,
sure.
it's a definite competition, but it's not a competition of I'm going to knock somebody else in the dirt to get
It's
ahead.
a healthy
It's
competition.
a
Yeah.
very healthy competition, but
Because it's teamwork
yeah,
competition. Right.
exactly.
Right.
It's a competition where when somebody has success, you rah them on just as much as you're
Yeah.
rawing
We're on the same
yourself
team.
on. Yeah, exactly,
A win for
exactly,
you is a win for all of us. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So
Well, so for me, like early on, as a talking disciple maker. But anytime I talk disciple maker, I have to, you know, engage in my institutionalism. Just that's the catch 22. There was a lot of people that were engaged with me, but there was no preparation on my part to help them engage someone else. It was just like, oh, Derek's meeting with us or me just to give us truth, just to help us
Pastor's job.
hear your pastor's job, or
Yeah.
he's going to help me be a better Christian. And so I would say that you have to be careful with what your intentions are in the disciple making strategy and the way that and why you're meeting with people. Because early on, I thought I had right intentions, and the intentions were very wrong. My intentions were very wrong. Thus, what I ended up with, my finished product, was not right. And it goes back to vision, it goes back to paradigm. So I would even say now that I am um, I am a lot more aware of what my intentions are with anybody I sit down with. And
Yeah.
it took about 15 years for me to figure out I had wrong intentions.
Yeah.
And it took me about 10 to 12 people to figure out there's a reason why they're not doing anything with the information. Now, the last couple of people that God has brought, ding, 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 the last couple of people that God has brought, everything has changed. Everything's different with them. And so now I have a guy that's coming back that was engaged for about 8 years in a very intense informational transference way to where he has notebooks and notebooks full of information. And he came back and he said, I'm ready to get back in this process. He's like, what are you gonna teach me? And immediately before I could answer, the Lord's like, no, hurt his feelings. And I'm like, I get tired of being that guy, God. And I
Really?
said, I don't need to teach you anything. I said, if you have all the information you have, and you are a lot more systematic and better laid out than I am, you are now going to be trained to look for the guy that's showing up
right,
because you are packed full. You're
Yeah.
ready.
right.
But now I couldn't have. I that was so. So I say that to say, there's nothing lost, even when our intentions are jacked up for years and years and years. There's no lost time when you are giving truth away.
Yeah.
Because for some people, it's just got to set before they do anything with it. And
Yeah,
when I say do anything with it, not be obedient, but give it away.
yeah,
Sometimes people are just different. They process different. They release it differently. They release it different than me, like me and Jason. And I'm sure you, Bill, the same way. I'm as impulsive with information as I am with my life. It's
mm-hmm.
like I get it and I'm like, oh, that's great. Blah, 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 and then I give it
Even,
away.
even before
And
I process it myself, I'm
yeah,
like, ah.
exactly.
Right.
And then while I'm giving away for the 15th time, I finally realize, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You call
So
me back. You're like, oh, I got this for you. Yeah.
We,
I would say there's no lost. I even realize my failure. And even in my failure, God's able to redeem my failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
God's able to make something that was a good thing and I'm meeting with that dude today, and he's going to be speaking on a Sunday when I'm out of town, and now my Sundays are becoming a great time for these people to speak.
yeah,
And it's working out great.
yeah.
But Anyway, I tried to force that years ago, and now I'm not forcing it. It's just like, hey, here's an opportunity. You interested? Yeah, yeah, let's do it. And so now we're meeting today. We're going to go over all the information. He's like I said, he is a great note taker. Very, very, very type A personality when it comes to anything he does. His garage is immaculate. Like he's just that kind of organizer, and it's like,
Oh,
dude,
that guy.
you are, yeah, yeah. I'm
And
thinking,
it needs to hang out with Bill a little bit more.
Yeah.
hold
I'll,
on, let me go get my
I'll
notes. And
just,
Bill's,
I'll
what if
disorganize him.
So as you're talking about this guy, I'm thinking about. I keep remember that story when they found the tomb of, I think it was Tutankhamun or whatever, and they found those jars with seeds in them, and they're like, I wonder what these seeds are, and they're like, well, let's just plant them, like, and they're 2,500-year-old seeds or whatever they were. Like it's like you pack somebody full of truth, and it may sit for 6 months, 2 years, 5, who knows? And like the hardest thing for me is to go try to grab them and pull them back in. Come on, let's get going again. And they
Yeah.
won't, for whatever life has just got them busy or whatever it is. And it just like, I've got two guys that I'm just like, every once in a while I'll call, hey man, how's it going? Just reaching out to them just to kind of see where they are. Some of the guys early on, and they're just not engaged with it right now. They got other things in front of them. But they're packed full. I mean, they got so much truth in them that it shook a horse, so that patient waiting is another fun thing.
Well,
Well, and you see other people. I see other people that I've met with as well doing the exact same thing I did
Yeah.
with the exact same intentions. And you're like, well, how can you be so judgmental that you think you know their intentions?
Right.
Because I know what it smells like, I know what it looks
Seen
like,
that before.
and I know
yeah,
what's coming.
yeah,
And it's
Yeah.
because experience. I wore that same crap. I did that same thing. But you gotta let them. You gotta let them go. You gotta let them wrestle. What was you gonna say, Bill?
No, I was going to say, so the person, I'm thinking of, the person you were talking about, which kind of sparked this conversation, is,
Yeah, exactly.
how do you develop these skills of conversation? How do you develop these skills of fishing? How do you get to the place where you can say it in a way that's not, you're not necessarily not trying to be offensive, because this is very offensive, it's very aggressive, but how do you say it in a way where people aren't taking it as I'm being attacked, and
Yeah.
or
Or
be
you're trying to be a one up them.
yeah,
Yeah. I know more than you,
or
and look how
spiritual
much I know.
posture. And a lot of people, and I thought about this too, that a lot of people want to have someone to invest in for validation of themselves. It's almost like, this validates me as a believer, as a discipler, or being in the process. Looking for that validation. When you've got to get rid of that. It's not
Yeah.
about you. It is about you, but it's not
But
about
won't
you.
that automatically kind of be part of it in the beginning though? Because you can't really get around that until you go through. You know what I'm saying? Like you're
Yeah,
like, don't do that, but like you're just gonna do it. Like you're
sure.
gonna do it.
Which is,
Yeah.
like I said at the beginning, be
Yeah.
content with failure,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna bust your face. But
Yeah.
how do you develop these conversational skills? Well,
Yeah.
just like what we're doing right now. This conversation we're having right now is one of a million that we've already
Yeah.
had, um,
Yeah.
and I, I I think without realizing it, me and you, Jason, for sure, we'd get, in the house somewhere or something, and there's a truth that is just killing us,
Yeah.
and we start to talk. Well, it became, and we've said this before, I probably, but it became a point when people saw me and you come together in a living room or in a kitchen or something, they were like, oh God, they're going to talk about this."
It would creep in
Yeah,
around us
it
to
was,
listen. Yeah.
and there's been a couple of times I remember, Heather, and I remember, Sherry would go, oh, wait, don't say nothing till I come over there. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we're like,
Yeah.
what? And they're like, like,
We're just having a conversation. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but they knew we were going to be talking about something that was beneficial.
Yeah, you wouldn't come up on us and us be talking about sports or the weather. It was always always
yeah,
Bible.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
always Bible.
yeah.
And we were so focused on each other talking, we didn't even realize it was happening. Like we'd get into a conversation, 5 minutes later, we'd like, kind of get aware of our surroundings, and we'd have 6 or 7 people just standing around us in a circle.
Looking
And we're
at us
like,
like, we hear what you're saying, but we don't understand what you're saying.
well, Bill and I got to the point where we were like shorthand. We could like we knew what the other person where they were going, and so we wouldn't even have to finish the sentence, and we'd say, "Oh yeah, you remember that? Oh yeah, yeah," and we would like knew, and so they were kind of going.
What do
It'd be like
you?
reading a stenographer's,
Yeah, yeah.
notes without having to know how to do
And
shorthand.
they'd have to. They'd say, "Okay, go back and explain this," and we'd be like, "Oh, that's a lot of track delay.
Yeah, it's a long way to go.
That's a lot of
Yeah,
track delay
yeah.
to make this train run, and I don't think we can get there in 10 minutes." So,
So even in that, like that was an engaging of people and a
yes,
draw of people without even
right,
intention. So
right,
like Derek, you know this as well as both of us. After a while, you're just so like in this mode of this kind of lifestyle. Everything you do kind of does
yes,
that.
right.
And I remember a story. I don't know if Bill remember this or not. But we went to a lunch at a restaurant in Hickory one day, and this is early. I think I was in the process a couple of years. And Bill was meeting with a few guys, and he invited me to come for lunch. And it was 3 or 4 of them, and so there was like 6 of us sitting around the table. And I'm in that point where I'm like wanting to say stuff because I'm learning things and I'm excited about what I'm learning. So I want to talk. I'm just like blah, like that. And so somebody asked a question, and I was like, yeah, blah blah blah, like that. And he was like, and then he turned to Bill, and Bill actually said almost verbatim the exact same thing. And when Bill said it, they went, every one of them leaned in, and I was like, "What the crap, man?" So it wasn't so much about the information. There was something about Bill, like Bill's attitude,
Yeah,
his
Yeah.
casual intention of it. It was like, "Yes, I know these things. Yes, I can help you," but it wasn't like I need you. You know what I
right.
mean? It was like that sense of just like, "Hey, I can help you if you want." But it's kind of like that chasing a girl. If you're a little too eager, they're not interested. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's kind of like that. And so I remember thinking when I left that lunch, I was like, I got a lot to learn. I got a lot of, there's just I got a long way to go, you know. And from that
The-
point forward, it was just like realizing it wasn't so much about the information you had as much as it was about like how you carried yourself, how you
yeah.
engage with people. You're here to help, not to, you don't need, what I mean? I don't know, it's kind of hard to,
No, but
hard
that's
to
something
figure
I
out.
wanted to bring up too. Is that as you're gathering this information, as you're seeking to do this, as you're learning how to converse with people, you really got to check why you're doing it. Okay, you really need to check yourself, and this is
Yeah.
not anything anybody can do for you. I mean, this is something you've really got to look inside your intentions and say, why am I doing this? Why am I looking? Why do I want somebody? Why do I want an individual to invest in? Is it just so because it's fun for me? Is it, what is
It's
it?
kind of fun.
It's hilariously fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the most fun you'll have because there's so many benefits to this that
Yeah.
but you have to really check yourself and say, why am I wanting to meet with these people? I mean, am
Yeah.
I just trying to gather this number around me for, like I said, for validation, or is it, what's your intention? But if your intention is not, and I'm not saying you have to have pure intention, and you got to have no
We'll never
flaw.
start if you wait on that.
Oh no, 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 no. Yeah, in fact, start with the wrong intention.
Yep.
Just start.
And
What?
this process will chew you up.
Oh my God! God,
It'll wear you out.
you
Yeah.
you you'll have a permanent bruise right in the middle of your chest
Yeah.
where God's got His hand or His foot most of the time, right in the middle of your chest.
Yeah, no, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Foot on my neck.
So
So,
here's
so,
my question.
What?
Here's my question.
I
Here's my question.
Okay.
How do
got one
you
for
get
Bill too.
how
Go
do
ahead.
you get to where people will sit down with you and listen and take notes? Like when this is the nuts and the bolts of what we were talking about the other day, because this is ultimately what we're trying to get to do with someone, which is have an intentional, individual, personal impact on their life, so much so that it's a Luke to Theophilus mentality. So the question is, that is the question I wish I would have had. I wish I would have addressed in my own life, along with why am I doing this? What's my intention? But
Mhm.
the question is, because that's where it's like there's been resistance with individuals I've met with,
Mm-hmm.
which is, yeah, but I don't have anybody. I don't know how to. Why do people want to sit down with you and not me? And it goes back to we have to wrestle with this for the sake of our guys,
Right.
which is that's thing was trying to switch on me, but that's why that's I think that's the question. I think that's the nuts and bolts of the question, which is ultimately this is what I could hear one of my guys saying.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get to the point, not to where I can say it like you, but where somebody just wants to sit down with me individually and take notes and listen to what I have to say?
Okay. So what you have to do is take every opportunity that you have to share in a very compassionate way. Okay, a lot of people share. There's different ways to share. Which you can be share aggressively. You can share in anger. You can share. You can share in all kinds of emotion. But
Checking all the boxes.
yeah, I mean,
Done that, done that, done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I've done that. I've actually been in situations where I felt, when I was speaking, whatever group I was speaking to, I got angry, and I was like, you know, for whatever reason, and I almost felt like, I want to feed you truth, with a shotgun, you know. I want to shoot.
You're going to take it whether you want
I,
it or not.
I wanted to take your head off,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and uh, and so it's every opportunity. So say you're just every time you get an opportunity, whether it be in your fellowship or whether you be in a conversation with people, and don't attack people with information. If it comes up, like if somebody says, "Ooh," it happened Sunday for me. Um, there was a feeding of the 5,000 discussion came up, and they were killing it. They were obliterating it. They were just, and I would, and I, it was, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna leave it alone. There was no easy way to get into that conversation with them. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So if you got to blast a hole through a wall to get to a conversation,
Get in. Yeah.
yeah, then
Leave
leave
it
it
alone.
alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had the same thing happen last night
Yeah.
with John 9.
Yeah.
We were walking out in the parking lot and we were talking to a couple, and the lady's like, "Yeah, John," and we were talking about blind people and all the stuff Jesus did, and I'm sitting there going, and I said, "That's more than just like a miracle, right?" She's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and then she starts going to the stuff all she's seeing, and I'm just sitting there, and Deborah's standing beside me, and she's kind of grinning because she's seeing me like test the water. Because she'd say something and she'd like pause a minute, and I'd just go, "You ever thought about that?" Like I would just leave a little nugget like that, and then she'd just blast back.
Yeah.
After 2 times of doing it, I'm just like, just shaking my head, and she watched me, and I'm sure she's thinking, "Why is he not trying to
Yeah.
share more?"
Right.
And I'm like,
Right. Because this is not about winning an argument.
Right, right.
This isn't about correcting somebody's misconception of a truth.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
This is about engaging them into the process. So
right.
you've got to use that again. Failure.
Say that again.
Experience.
That I think
What?
we did this whole video just for that sentence.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that, yeah,
It's not about winning an argument. It's not about correcting someone's theology. It's about engaging them to enter into the process.
I'm glad you could repeat it because I couldn't repeat.
Honestly, that's
yeah,
it. Like that's the
yeah,
whole point. Like we think we get into a conversation with somebody and like I got to show them how smart I am, or I got well, like okay, that may be fine. Some people may need that punch in the mouth, but most people Like you're how can I move them to the place where they're ready to talk and have a
Right.
conversation and see a bigger picture, and whatever it takes to get them to that point is what we want to do. Like
Right.
that's huge. Like that's the whole point of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Like we're not trying to like say, hey, you got to be sneaky or manipulative. Like no, you
No.
want them to have the best chance to see these ideas and get involved in the process that Jesus asked us to, and whatever that takes to get done. You just got to be sensitive to know what that is and be patient for it. But
Right.
that's it. That's really what we're doing.
Right.
But you got to know where you're going.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got like you and that you've got to know where you're going,
Mhm.
and that's where the intention is paramount.
Right.
But you can have wrong intention, and hopefully in time, hopefully quicker than 15 years, you'll see that, But that just how it was for me. But that's a great statement.
yeah,
And don't don't I encourage you not to reduce the process just to get somebody to sit down with you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like you
That's
Oh,
that,
heck
yeah, yeah,
you mentioned, what, when you sit down with somebody, there has to be clear parameters. There has to be clear direction. There has to be clear, where are we going? What are we going to do? And
yep,
and so, like, when I think Jason would agree with this. When I sit down with somebody, I set the parameter. There's no hey, what do you think about this, or this is what I'm proposing, are you willing to do that? It's like, no, this is it, this is what you have to do, this is what
yeah,
being in the process with me is like, and
yeah,
this is your chance to say no.
yeah,
And if they
yeah,
say no and walk away, let them
yeah,
walk away.
yeah.
I don't, how many people do you know, Jason, that have said, I don't want to do this anymore and walk away? And what do? I'm right
Yeah, and
here.
they won't say that, but they'll just bow out. They'll just
Yeah.
say they'll get busy.
I've actually
They'll
had
get
two
I
people
can't
actually
meet, I
say
can't
that.
do it. Yeah, yeah, I've actually had that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They say,
But
okay.
most of them are like they just kind of find other things to do. They're too
Yeah.
busy to meet or they got stuff going on. Yeah. So for me, like there's certain things that I want to relay in certain amounts of time, right? So I don't want to like the first day, like, hey, you're going to take on the whole wide world. Like that's not the first thing I start with, but that's my intention right there with every person is to have that vision. And so, but early on is like, hey, the intention right now is for you to understand the reason you're in that chair is because somebody else is praying
Right.
and they want to know God and they need help and God is raising you up to do it and I'm going to help equip you to help them.
Right.
So everything I'm giving you has got to go through you, right? So that's the first thing I start with. Like, look, this stuff does not end with you. You're not a Dead Sea. You're a spring blowing out. And so that's originally that's what my intention is, like, you know, whatever we're starting with, whatever we're going to study, whatever we're going to get involved with, whatever ideas we're going to talk about, that is paramount. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what we talk
Right.
about. And then, like, we talk about hearing for the next 6 months because people don't hear,
Right.
and they probably get sick of me talking about hearing, and they're like, I hear it already. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't. I promise you don't, because
Right.
I
And that
was the
makes
same way.
people mad.
It does make people mad.
It
And
makes
that's
them
usually what
mad.
I'm doing to try to offend somebody a little bit to see if their pride will
Yeah.
get in the way.
Yeah.
You kind of busting their flesh a little bit.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're eventuate, hey man, we got to get you on a trip. Why do we go on a trip? Because that's our project. That's our assignment. Like
Right.
every person is our assignment. And you got to go. You got to be willing to go. You got to be willing to get there and stand in front of them and help them for somebody else.
Don't you,
So
don't you love those people that show up that think they hear? Because if you're really doing what is intentional, then they're going to be a walking example every time that they either they walk away from you from a meeting, or you're going to be using them as an example, and they're going to start one day figuring out, holy crap, I'm the guy that he's talking about. That and so it's like you don't necessarily have to have somebody that shows up with perfect intentions, because I mean, that's not going to happen.
No.
Even the person leading the show isn't going to have proper intentions to start with, as we've
yeah,
already stated. And like every one of the people I've ever sat down with, I will tell you, there's one thing I never missed. I missed a lot of crap. one thing I never missed is you sit down with me, you're bringing a notebook and a pen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not a soul that's ever met with me that has not seen that intention.
Yeah.
That's paramount. But there's the world that I was missing early on. That was a big deal. That was paramount because that's the end goal. And then, of course, I just wrote down three, and the three goals: notebook, world, and others.
Mm-hmm.
Put world first, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all three, but it's that concept of why am I meeting with Derek? Why am I meeting with Bill? Why am I meeting with Jason? Like, why? I wish somebody would freaking ask me that. Like, I wish 15 years ago, one of them knotheads would have said, what are we doing, Derek?
Yeah.
Nobody had the balls to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off. But because I'll be dadgum, I'll drop a freaking question in the middle of anybody's world.
Mm.
I ain't got a problem asking questions, even if it incriminates me. I'll ask a question,
Right.
and I'm like, because I want to know what in the world I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And nobody will ask me those questions or did ask me those questions. And I would say you got to be careful about that when somebody's not. Well, now, what are we doing?
Mhm.
Why do you want me to go over here?
Yeah,
What's the point?
They're not moving. They're just
No,
showing
no,
up because
no.
it's
They're
something to
not
do.
seeing. They're not hearing if they're not asking questions.
Yeah.
So
But
I got a guy. I got a guy I'm meeting with right now. Talking about hearing, it's so funny. So he's in a position where he meets with guys like regularly because he's in a place where they're living, and he's wanting to engage with these guys. And these guys are all over the place. These are not guys who showed up there to learn something. They've showed up there because of their need. And so he's dealing with these guys day in and day out. They live in the house together. And he's like, what should I be teaching them? You know, and he's asking me, and I'm like, well, you know, what do you mean? Like, what do you want? And he's like, well, what lessons should I teach him? I was like, well, first of all, I would talk about hearing for the next 6 months and seeing from God, like those spiritual hearing, spiritual seeing. He's like, yeah, I know that. Like, no, like it doesn't matter how good your information is. If they can't hear it, it doesn't matter. Like, so he's like, well, how do you teach about hearing? I said, what you're talking about. Like, you talking about capturing truth, being able to repeat it, and start to get mastery of it, and then maybe you'll hear it. Maybe you'll hear it. And so I'm telling these things to him, and he's just like going, you know, I mean, he's already kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Sounds
no,
boring.
what do we really want to do, right? And I don't know. A week went by, and he come back and he says, yeah, I think we need to talk about hearing, because he realized himself that he doesn't hear.
Mm.
Like this guy's on fast track. Like God's doing like a rocket ship with him, for whatever reason. And so he was like, "Yep, we need to talk about hearing. What can I talk about hearing at?" And I'm like, I mean,
throw
I
a
can-
dart at the
can-
dartboard,
I
man.
can, yeah, right. Just open the Bible. You may have to move a page or two, but that'd be about it. So, but yeah, that's key. Like if you're not willing to capture, like this is not going to go in you. Like you
Right.
know, like my wife right now, God's eating her up, man. Our passion is just like boiling, like bubbling over. It's so fun to watch. And she's listening. She's listening to Herb stuff. She's listening to you, Bill, some of your stuff, and like all the RVL, like all these different places. She's listening to stuff, and she's sending these things to these ladies in her group. And she's like, "What else can I send them?" I said, "I think they have enough. I
Yeah.
think they have enough to, you know." And so anyway, the other day she was listening to one while she was like putting her makeup on, getting ready. She was listening to it, and she, you know, I hear in the other room, "Why didn't you tell us this before?" Because she hears something that hits,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "I don't know, honey. I guess I missed that one." In reality, was I said it 100 times,
Sure.
and she just never heard it. So now she's listening to that stuff and she's doing that. And then I said, honey, you know, you're going to have to stop just listening to it, but you're going to have to get to a point where you listen to it while you can take notes and capture it.
Yeah.
Like you got to. You can't just
Right.
casually listen. Like it's good because you're putting information in and you're starting to get familiar with it. But until you're cutting it down where you can learn to say it yourself, it's really not going to make a big impact.
And or give it away. And
Yes,
or
exactly.
systematically give
Yeah.
it away.
Giving away is not, hey, here's a link. I mean, that's part of it. You want to give people resources, but at the same time, you've got to be able to say these things, give it away from your own heart.
Yeah, and you talk about capturing truth and organizing truth. One things that I started doing, you know, last however many years, I don't know, but I when I meet with somebody, I'd say, listen, I want you to get two notebooks. I want you to have one notebook for just when we meet,
Right.
and then one notebook for everything else that you're hearing. You know, when you're sitting under, you know, whatever other truth. And the reason for that, and this is kind of a, I guess, the next level kind of, uh, you know, advice. It's not really truth; it's advice. Is because it organizes truth. You know, that way they don't have to go fishing for what you're telling them.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. It's
in
all
the,
kind of in one
it's
place.
in
Yeah.
one it's in one place because what you're giving them is very strategic, it's very
Yeah.
directed, it's very it's very much the nuts and bolts of what they need. So they need that in one place. You're just basically helping them to organize. But
Yeah.
and the other stuff is good that they can, they may get under somebody that don't know what the heck they're doing and they got to redo it, whatever. But but it go. The reason I said that is because when you're sitting, and that may be why God's not bringing anybody, because your intention is not to pour in so they can pour in to somebody else.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
intention may be that you want to pour in just because you want somebody's eyes to light up. You just want to
Yeah.
feel that thrill of relaying
Yeah.
information because it is
Yeah.
thrilling.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah. I love that. I love that.
I, I, how many conversations have we been in when somebody says a passage that we have spent a lot of time in, and your eyes kind of twinkle, and you feel the horses.
Let me give me a chance to say it.
You,
Help me. Yeah,
you feel the
yeah,
horses latching up to your harness, and
yeah.
you're about ready to be pulled into full gallop over these people, um, and 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 you just gotta
Great visual. Great visual.
and
Yeah.
you just got and you gotta kind of and then ask them a couple, learn the art of asking questions, of going, that's very interesting, so why do you think he did it this here,
Yeah.
why did he say that, why do you think, and maybe they never considered that, why do you think he said that, and then don't say, why do you think he said that, blah, 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 this is why he said that. It's why do you
I
think
did.
he
I
said
did that.
that?
I did that quite a bit.
And
Yeah.
then wait, and then they'll go and wait for them to go, huh? I, why do you think? And as soon as they open the door, see,
Yeah.
you can attack somebody or go through the door, same door, go
If they
through the
ask you.
door, but if they open the door, then they've given you permission to come in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you can start the conversation and also be comfortable with laying a bomb out and walking away and not follow up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
But
actually kind of fun.
isn't it always a good day when somebody blames you for getting them in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
But then you could always say, "You're the one that gave me the key. You're the one that unlocked the door.
You're the one that
You're the
asked for
one that let me come through."
it.
It wasn't. We didn't. It wasn't like
Yeah,
a. We didn't barge in, and
yeah,
yeah, it's always a good day when you can turn the script back on them and say, "I'm not the one that asked the question."
yeah. And somebody
Yeah,
says you messed me up. Now what do I do? I'm like, hey man, that's just the information. Do what you
part of
want
the
to.
job.
What do
Yeah.
you do what you
Yeah.
want to do with it?
Yeah. Derek still calls me from about 3 years ago, and I introduced him to an idea, and he's like, "Best be." I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
you engage with it. I just pointed you to a
Yeah,
resource.
exactly.
Yeah, it was funny the other day, just a few Saturdays ago, we were meeting with the guys, and one of these guys had come in kind of new, and we're going through the Gospel of Mark. We're just walking through it, and so we get to the part where Jesus is, fed the 5,000 and pushes the guys out in the boat, just getting the storm comes out, and I'm building up to the point where Jesus comes walking by, right, and so I'm like, this is one of my favorite lines in all of the Bible, and this guy's like, and he's leaning in. I said, "This will show you Jesus's heart probably better than anything you'll ever see." And I'm talking about it, just kind of building it up, building it up. Like he leans in. He's just, like, yeah, man, he is just like captivated. And I said, notice what it says. And Jesus intended to walk by. I'm like, well, you know this, right? And he's like, he's looking at it on the page like he'd never seen it before, which may be true. And he's looking at that and he just kind of leans back and he goes, huh. And you could just see the wonder in his eyes and his mind of what was happening to when he thought Jesus, like Jesus is a jokester. Jesus is kind of funny.
Yeah.
He's kind of like he's playing a game with these guys. You know, he's engaging in them in a way that's just, and it did a number on him. It was good. It was good. Just one little line, and you know the power of that in a conversation is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you can think about it in your own life. You know, you've been in a conversation with somebody years ago or whatever, and they said something, and they may not even had any intention in doing it, but they said something, and God just takes that and just sledgehammers you over the next weeks or months, and just it just opens up something for you.
Mhm.
And you know, we get the privilege of doing that. I mean, what a great privilege and responsibility. But
And
yeah, I do like the lights coming on.
yeah.
I get a lot of joy out of watching that happen.
Or cocking a head sideways.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say something and people go, they it's almost like an involuntary reflex. They just go,
I'm looking for that, honestly,
yeah,
because that to me is the crack in the door, like with Derek's room right there. The door's cracked. That's the crack in the door. They
Yeah.
went what?
yeah. They're like,
And then they're like,
explanation, and then when I see that head cock, usually it's another involuntary response from me. I smile real big.
my wife thinks I'm just being arrogant when I
Yeah.
do that. She's like, "You're just arrogant. Look at you got that grin on your face." I'm like, "No, I just know what's coming.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for what's coming."
You can smell the smoke.
He said, "Well, you look like a butthole." I'm like, "Sorry, it's
Why,
the only
thank
face I
you.
got."
Why, thank you.
You don't use that word. I use that word. But
So it really is about practice,
Mm.
being around people. If you're engaged with someone who's discipling you, there's your person to practice with. Because if they're bringing if you're bringing a truth to your discipler, they're going to push back. And
Yeah.
test it and give you opportunity to say it better. So
Yeah.
so so take every opportunity, every conversation as an opportunity, and learn a skill. So it is a skill
Yeah.
to engage people.
Absolutely. I would add, I've got a guy who I met with he's pretty veteran now. He knows, but one of his lacks, he's even confessed, is he doesn't know how to engage people, right? And so I started going to this place, another little fishing pond, where I was, trying to just engage people like that. And he said, "Do you mind if I come?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not even teaching. There's another guy teaching. I'm just there to kind of engage, with people." He said, "That's why I want to go. I want to watch you do it. Like, I want to watch how you do this." And I'm like, "Come on." And just him being in the room and watching how I like ask questions, and not being the person up front teaching, like you can actually have actually sometimes better impact
Oh yeah.
being in the wings than you can being the guy up front. And so he's come and like he was engaging and watching me, and then you could see the practice, like he would dovetail on the things that I was saying and engaging with. And now they've asked him to come teach there.
Hmm.
Now he's teaching there every other Monday, and I was like, that's awesome.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah.
All right, Derek,
Yeah,
you get the
just
last
being
word.
Just being with people sometimes helps. Yeah.
I get the last
You
word.
get the last word. I will do all I can to be quiet. I'm just going to sit
This
stop.
this is what I titled. So my last word is explaining to people, even though I've been in the process. You probably can't see it because of the
There he
glare,
goes.
Yeah.
There he goes.
but I'm still taking notes.
Yeah.
And so the title of this, the skill of drawing people into the process.
Mm.
That's my last words and testament.